Francesco Silvato from Spain. And one like the presentation, Mr. Marco Mauer from
I'm organizing this 41st International Symposium in Diabetes and Nutrition for the kind invitation to take part in this meeting. This is the title of the sixth muscle mass and function relevant in diabetes management. And in the next slide, we could see the outline of the presentation. Step 4 will describe the population aging processes and its association with the prevalence of type 2 diabetes mellitus in these patients. Secondly, we will establish the link between diabetes and frailty. Next point, we will add important role of sarcopenia in the evolution of these patients. In the fourth point, we will introduce the concept of disability as the last step in the physical impairment of these patients. And finally, we will talk about the non-pharmacological approaches and treatments. This is the Spanish population pyramid. It's very similar to the pyramid in other Western countries. There is an important demographic change from 2012 to 2052 with an adult population. That means an important increase in the type 2 diabetes prevalence. You could see on the map the elevation of this prevalence in the different continents, and especially in Europe from 2000 to 2030, 7%. This elevation of the prevalence in type 2 diabetes is linked to an important social change that produces negative effects in the lifestyle habits, especially with an important increase in the sedentarism that associates an important increase in oxidative stress, an important increase in inflammation, an important increase in immunosenescence, and the translation is a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, and as well as type 2 diabetes mellitus in older adults frequently is associated to chronic conditions such as dementia, stroke, hypertension, cardiopathy, Parkinson's disease, chronic renal failure, and osteoarthritis. And what about diabetes and frailty? Frailty patients plus diabetes decreases in at least 7 months the survival rate when we compare these patients with frail patients without diabetes. And the association between diabetes and frailty increases the risk of complications in more than 2.6-fold. And as we could see in the table of mortality risk factors, frailty increases in more than close to 3-fold the risk of mortality. This meta-analysis shows the high prevalence of frailty in diabetic patients, about the 15%, and as well as frailty is associated to mortality, hospital admissions, and disability. Speaking about diabetes, frailty, and disability, we could see in this table as the free disability life expectancy is lower in men and women with diabetes compared with people and diabetes. And in the same point, we could see the same effect in the moderate or severe disability life expectancy, also in men and women. This other meta-analysis shows as type 2 diabetes increases the risk of hospital admission with frail and frail diabetic patients, and in the same way, frailty and frailty condition in diabetic patients increases the risk of mortality, as we could see in the previous slides. Is this process, how does this process appear? It's linked to the changes in lifestyle habits that we described in previous slides, related to smoking, sedentarism, obesity, hypertension, that increases the activity TNF-alpha, interleukins 1 and 6, and this elevation of the inflammatory activity produces this lipidemia, peripheral insulin resistance, endothelial dysfunction, neurotoxicity, and is linked to the increase in the prevalence of important chronic conditions in other adults, such as atherosclerosis, type 2 diabetes, dementia, and is linked to an important increase of mortality in these patients too. But the same inflammatory pathway produces sarcopenia, osteopenia, and anorexia related to the increased risk of frailty and mortality in these patients. Because inflammation related to the activity of interleukins 1 and 6 and TNF-alpha is linked the increase in the prevalence of the most frequent chronic diseases in older adults, such as dementia, cardiac disease, stroke, anemia, chronic pulmonary disease, sarcopenia, frailty, autoimmune diseases such as arthritis, anorexia, type 2 diabetes, because the cycle of frailty starts with a neuroendocrine dysregulation that produces the anorexia of aging. The second step is a chronic undernutrition that produces a disbalance between energy and nitrogen intake. And this disbalance is regulated in our bodies with a loss of muscle mass, and this loss of muscle mass and the loss of muscle function is known sarcopenia, because we could see in this patient a decrease in the gait speed and an important decrease in the strength. And if we pay attention to the frailty and type 2 diabetes mellitus cycle, we could see that the peripheral insulin resistance blocks the activity of the insulin growth factor 1, stopping the synthesis of proteins and increasing the proteolysis that produces apoptosis, fatigue, oxidative damage, and an important decrease of the muscle mass and an important functional impairment. In fact, the diabetes risk factors are the same that the frailty. We could see in this paper as the selected diabetes risk factors are associated with subsequent frailty. And in the opposite side, we know that in centenarians, in successful aging processes, the peripheral insulin sensitivity is higher and linked with the longer longevity. Because the peripheral insulin sensitivity decreases inflammation, decreases the mitochondrial dysfunction processes, and the adipocyte activity. In this slide, we will summarize the sarcopenia pathogenesis related to the peripheral insulin resistance is linked to the mitochondrial dysfunction, the decrease in the fatty acid assimilation, an important increase in fatty acid oxidation, in the oxidative stress production, and alteration in nutrient sensitivity that produces an hormonal disbalance between anabolic and catabolic hormones, decreasing the activity of testosterone, estrogens, growth hormone, insulin growth factor 1, and vitamin D. And this pathogenesis of sarcopenia that we see in the previous slide linked to the decrease in insulin growth factor 1, to the decrease in other anabolic hormone such as testosterone, and a decrease of exercise produces an important increase of sarcopenia and fertility. Stops the protein synthesis, and the increase in the myostatin activity increases the protein degradation, disturbing the protein synthesis, increasing the protein degradation, and decreasing the muscle mass volume. This meta-analysis shows as diabetes accelerates the loss of muscle mass and strength due to 3 factors. The first one, the peripheral insulin resistance. The second, the increase of the levels of inflammatory cytokines. And the last one, the associated changes in endocrine function, producing a disbalance between catabolic and anabolic hormones with an important increase of the first ones compared to the second ones. And this process could be seen after some evolution of the disease. We can estimate this evolution in more than 6 years, and in patients with a poorer glycemic control. And we can estimate this glycemic control, or this poorer glycemic control, with levels of hemoglobin A1C higher than 8%. Before the appearance peripheral neuropathy, we could see a decrease in the gait speed and the gait balance, increasing the risk falls in these patients. And you know, falls is an important geriatric syndrome in older adults. And by this reason, it's very important the assessment of the muscle health in diabetic patients, because see an important decline in muscle mass, muscle strength, and functional capacity of diabetic patients during the evolution of the disease. And we could see the same process with disability. Patients with diabetes and functional impairment increases the risk of mobility disability, instrumental activities of daily living disability, and total activities of daily living disability. But the disability is not only linked to the functional impairment of these patients. We could see in diabetic patients as dementia starts an average of 2 years before that in patients without diabetes. The survival of these patients poor, but as well as the functional decline, cognitive decline is faster in these patients than in patients without diabetes. And this effect of diabetes is especially important in patients with diagnosis of diabetes at younger age, or the duration and evolution of the disease of more than 15 years. Because nutritional state, functional state, and cognition are linked in these patients, as we could see in this paper published 5 years ago. The MRI studies shows a relationship between the total short physical performance battery score and the hip flexor strength and the global gray matter and the gray matter volume involved in motor function. Finally, the non-pharmacological treatments and approaches, which consider that the drugs for the treatment of diabetes can produce hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia. Both conditions increasing the risk of geriatric syndromes such as malnutrition, urinary incontinence, cognitive impairment, falls, functional disability, and depression. Drug treatment of these patients should be applied after the consideration of these 5 rules. The first one, avoiding hypoglycemia, as we could see in the previous slide, primum non nocere. First, don't harm. Secondly, trying to apply treatments with beneficial effect on weight, reducing the peripheral resistance. In the third rule, we should avoid long half-life oral antidiabetic drugs, trying to avoid, again, the hypoglycemia. In the next rule, we will try to assess the beneficial effects on alpha and beta pancreas cells. And finally, we should associate some positive synergisms. It's important to treat diabetes, but it's also important to assess the muscle health. The prevalence of sarcopenia in diabetic patients is very high, more than 50%. And by this reason, we should pay attention to this new concept, diabetic sarcopenia. And for this reason, we should assess and screen sarcopenia in older adults with diabetes, especially in people with bad control of the diabetes, and people with sedentarism. In all of these patients, we should screen the presence of sarcopenia, and after the diagnosis of this condition, we should recommend a good metabolic control and increase in the intake of proteins in these patients, and assessment of other comorbidities associated with diabetes, and physical exercise, because the best therapy for these patients is exercise. Exercise improves the glycemic control in these patients, and of course, we should individualize and tailor the physical exercise programs to the conditions of the individual patients. It shows that the physical exercise programs improve the physical condition of these patients. The adherence is not too good because the lack of adhesion in aerobic exercise is close to 40%, and in exercises with elastic bands is close to 50%. But the important point is, regardless of this low adherence to physical exercise, the patients improve the frailty conditions. See an important increase in frailty from 34% to 25%, and a percentage of mild or severe impairment was reduced from 26 to 21%. And the adherence to aerobic exercise is linked to the absence of coronary ischemic cardiopathy and the predisposition to improve. This is the last slide of my speech, showing us the multimodal intervention can improve the physical condition in type 2 diabetes patients. The multimodal intervention is composed of an individualized and progressive resistant exercise program for 16 weeks, and diabetes and nutritional educational program, and an investigator-linked training to ensure the optimal diabetes care. The results is an increase in the short physical performance battery score and an important saving following the intervention of more than 400 euros per patient. Thank you very much for the attention.